when we set goals, the question we need to answer is actually, do I really, really want that? And most of the time we are told, and society in general, people ask themselves automatically the question, oh, but how am I going to achieve that? The moment you ask the question, how, you start limiting yourself and you invite limited thinking instead of the unlimited potential that we actually have.
In this episode, you will learn what are the type of goals. You will learn a step-by-step process that have been implemented by Bob Proctor and taught by a lot of coaches in how to achieve your goals and create what you want in this life.
You are listening to Say No to Suffering podcast. Overcome your struggles by discovering inspiring people and finding practical ways with your host, Ayub Yusuf.
Welcome everyone to this session number 29 from the Say No to Suffering podcast. This is your host, Ayub Yusuf, and today I am interviewing Renata on the secret to achieving your goals.
Renata, thank you for accepting my invitation today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Ayub, for inviting me.
Amazing. So Renata, you are a coach and consultant at Proctor Gallagher Institute. You are the founder of Connecting Our Minds with Love, and you studied psychology, but you are currently a love-based transformation coach. Before I ask my first question about our topic today, how did all this get started with you?
Well, yes, that's, of course, we all have our personal story. And it is interesting because well, even when I was little, I was very interested in psychology. Of course, it's all started with family. And I was interested in how the mind works. The interesting thing was that I also knew somehow when I was even a child, a lot of things. My grandfather used to spend a lot of time with me and teach me certain things, which later, years and years later, I would find out and classify as almost what we now refer to as the law of attraction. But of course, I was a child and I didn't know much, but I was fascinated with that topic. Of course, when I grew up, I studied psychology. But again, with psychology, I always knew that I wanted to do something that is a little bit more practical. And I always knew I wouldn't be doing it necessarily mainstream, but again, more practical in such a way that I can help each and every person I meet and come in contact with. So this is why I went through a lot of personal development in addition to the psychology that I've studied. And when I came to Bob Proctor's programs and teachings, this was one that resonated with me the most. And it is interesting because when the Secret, the movie and the book came out in 2006, I went to an event. I went to an event where almost all of the teachers and the big names from The Secret were there.
Wow.
And it was a several-day event. And yeah, it was amazing. It was really quite an experience. A lot of the teachers were there and they were sharing their information. And that's where I met Bob Proctor. And
I'm really jealous, by the way. I wish I was there.
That's all right. Yeah. No, it was quite something. And again, because the energy, it was the whole, it was becoming popular just at that point of time. And I saw Bob Proctor from the stage, and right then and there, there was a thought in my mind, and I said to myself, one day I'm going to work with Bob Proctor. And the intention was set. And it is interesting because now in retrospect, I hear my thought, and that's exactly what happened. Years went by, and in 2018, I actually went to another event. And what happened is I realized that my intention, one day was no more. And I decided that it has to be today. And instead of one day, I said, no, it is day one. So that's what happened. And it was interesting because this is a very good example, actually, of what I teach today, is how our mind and how the paradigm works. Because, again, my intention was one day I'm going to work with that proctor. And I could have said, no, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to find a way. But at that point, that was the thinking. And that's, again, an example of how we actually create circumstances in our life that match our internal reality, and external reality really reflects that. So that's a little bit of it. Now I actually work with Bob Proctor, and I've done a lot of studying, and I'm still as fascinated with it as I was before.
Amazing. This is actually interesting. And before we dig deep into the topic of how you can achieve your goals and maybe why you put your dreams in your shelves and you didn't act on them, I want you to walk me back. You said you have set the intention in 2006, and then yet you started working with Bob Proctor in 2018. So that's almost like maybe 11, 12 years there. So according to you, why this took like this long time? What happened in between?
Yes. That's the interesting part, because again, it is our thinking that creates our results. At that point of time, my thinking was that I wasn't able to do it at that point, and I put it off for a while. So for a long time, I was actually searching. I had my priority with my family at that point of time, because when I came to Canada, it was actually to the year 2000. So it is exactly 20 years now. And initially I was more focused. I really wanted to take care of my family, my kids, and that's what happened. So the level of belief was not exactly there. And belief is actually very, very important. Our self-image is very, very important as well. And how we set goals and how we achieve goals. Because for what Bob Proctor taught me, they're actually two different things. And a lot of times we don't make the distinction, and actually makes it more difficult to make a decision. And that's what happened with me back then. I had put my dreams on the shelves for a very long time, and I just kept them alive, but I wasn't willing to act on them just yet. Until that point of time when I realized,
So basically you have set the intention, the circumstances start working with you, let's call it, in a different plane of reality. However, you haven't focused your attention in that idea. So do you think that's what's actually stopping people today from achieving their goals or not acting in their dreams?
I would say there are several things, but this is one of the big ones. Because how we set goals and how we achieve goals are two different things. It is usually the how that stops most people. And that's why it actually becomes difficult to make a decision. In fact, the only consideration in order to do something or not to do something, as Bob Proctor teaches, is do we want it? And everything else comes after. When we set goals, the question we need to answer is actually, do I really, really want that? And most of the time we are taught, and society in general, people ask themselves automatically the question, but how am I going to achieve that? The moment you ask the question, how, you start limiting yourself and you invite limited thinking instead of the unlimited potential that we actually have inside all of us. We immediately jump into the achieving of the goal achieving process. And in fact, there are two different things. When you set a goal, you first decide if you really want to do that. Only once you've made a decision that you really, really want it and you're willing to go to make it happen, then after the fact, after the decision, then you start figuring out how. And then the how always shows up. There's always a way. Because we come back to the old saying, like, if there is a will, there is a way. However, we want to put the way first, and then the intention, and then the decision. But it doesn't work that way. It actually, once we decide we want something, then we go to the how.
Let's focus on the first step. So now we have a lot of people here listening to us, and then they say, okay, I would ask myself, do I really want it? How someone could effectively answer that question. Is the answer yes is enough, or they should go more into detail? So tell me how you would guide one of your clients into this process, like the first step.
Well, yes. What we do is actually usually tell people to do a little exercise first, just because our creative process and creative juices, they need a nudge. So usually we start just writing up a list of things that we want. And after we've done that, then we start choosing. But when you are deciding for every single particular thing, we know it is a feeling. It is what we all know what we want. The only problem is that we deny it to ourselves, and that is why we actually give up quite often before we even start.
Why do you think we deny what we want?
Well, yeah. First of all, I believe it is a societal paradigm, because that's how other people do it. That's how it's been done for a very long period of time. The moment we try, especially if it is a big goal, and a worthy goal, and something that we haven't done before, what happens is we automatically think of how we're going to do it. For example, let's say this is an actually very good and well-known example of how people, the first time that the idea was entertained that people can go to the moon. And this was something that was never, ever done before. And it was so out there in terms of the thinking. But President Kennedy at that point asked one of the scientists there, and he asked him, what will it take for a man to build a rocket ship and take a man safely to the moon and back? And the answer was the will to do it. The answer was not how it is going to happen, what kind of materials do we need, what kind of ideas, what kind of machinery, what kind of personnel. No, the answer was the will to do it. And that's probably the one main reason why we deny our dreams and we don't let them flourish, right?
So that's the key, the first step. And you maybe said that that's actually 80% or it's most of the steps needed is the will. Let's say now I have a will. In another word, I have a burning desire to achieve a goal that I am definite about and I am clear about. What would be my next step? You said once I go into the how, I will start thinking of limitations and why I can do it. So how you actually help people to move forward and continue with that goal? Because we know, yes, you need a desire, but also you need commitment to that goal.
Yes, correct. Exactly. And I would say we start with first coming up with the goal. How do we do that? And I'll give you an example, because we say there are three types of goals, and they're called A, B, and C. So an A-type goal is a goal something that we have done before, and it isn't much of a stretch. An example of that is when, for example, we want to buy a new car. However, we've bought a new car before, we just want something newer. So basically, this is really a repetition of the old. It is not a real goal. It is not something that will make us grow. And a goal, the purpose of a goal is to help us to grow. So an A-type goal is really not a goal. It's just a repetition of what we've done before. A B-type goal is something that we think we can achieve. And this is, and it feels quite a bit of a stretch. However, it is a very safe stretch most of the time. It isn't, so we think we can achieve. Well, we have to maybe just maneuver a little bit, get a few things around in order to get it done, but we think we can get it done. But it's not inspiring enough to have the real pull of that burning desire. And the C-type goal is what we actually really, really want. It is something that we haven't done before. And it doesn't have to be necessarily big or small, but what matters is that it helps us grow, and we haven't done it before. So therefore, we don't know how to do it. But the moment we have the desire, the moment we figure out, we fantasize, we dream, we let ourselves dream, like dreaming like the little children, right? And the child still lives in all of us, and just that we have to allow it to allow the voice, to hear the voice, right? So again, we get to that state of fantasy, we allow ourselves to dream, and at that point we actually connect with our heart, because generally we have quite disconnect between our thoughts and our feelings. Feelings are the guide that really connects us with our intuition and really gives us that little hint if we are on the right track. So when we have this big C-type goal, then is when we actually are able to be so inspired that nothing at that point really stops us. Because the more purpose we have, the more it actually helps with the commitment. Even though, yes, it may take some effort or it may be easy, we'll get to that point, how we do that, but it is really very, very, it is a strong goal, something that we really don't deviate after. Once we have that, we have connected to that emotional goal, because it has to be emotional. It doesn't have to be just a thought, but the really, really emotional, something that has the strong, the strong power to hold it. So this gives us the commitment, because it's almost literally the purpose itself, rather than our own strength, that leads us through and helps us go further and further and grow further and further.
So I understand here, someone should find a type C goal, something that create that burning desire inside of them in order to help them commit. And after that, they need to connect with that goal, not on the thought level, but in the emotional level. And according to you, do you have some practices that help people create that emotional connection with the goal? Do you encourage them to imagine themselves living that goal, having results, or what exactly?
Correct. Yes, that's exactly correct, as you really summarized it very, very well. And yes, we do have practices. One of the first thing I would encourage people is to actually write. The interesting thing about writing is that when we write, we cannot write without thinking. So we already stimulate that part in us, which allows us to dream, allows us to start thinking about it, because that's the start. And then the more we write, the more we can get to the emotional side of it as well, because it starts in that we have to start the creative process, right? So that's how it works. And then there are a lot of things we do as well in terms of visualizing the goal and creating a really vivid picture. But not only creating the picture, but also the concept of what we want to achieve and how it is going to feel. Because how it is going to feel is the exciting part. Usually it's not the goal itself that we are actually even aiming at, but subconsciously we're actually looking for the feeling that this goal or achievement of this goal is going to give us. So in the end, the emotions are the ones that makes us feel good, that create the conscious to the subconscious mind. On that note, if you allow me, I would like to add one important element, because how our mind operates is like we have the conscious and the subconscious part, and everybody does that. And the conscious is a very, very small part, and the subconscious is actually 94 to 98% of how our mind operates.
Absolutely.
The interesting thing is, though, that the interesting thing is that the conscious mind is the thinking mind, and the subconscious is the emotional mind. And when we are able to align the conscious and the subconscious, to align feeling, thinking, then we align with actions, and then we get the results that we want. And the interesting thing is, quite often people operate in such a manner that in the conscious, they have one thought or belief, but in the subconscious, they have just the opposite. So what happens, and what makes it really simple with Bob Proctor's program, is that you can really look at it as 1 + 1 makes 2, or 1 - 1 = 0. Because if you have a thought or desire in your conscious mind, but you have the opposite belief or feeling of disbelief or doubt, or anything that's contrary to that desire, in effect, we can say it is -1 in your subconscious mind. So 1 - 1 = 0. So that's why people sometimes they struggle and suffer, and they try to create the results, and then sometimes nothing happens, or they have a limited amount of result or improvement. But again, they go back, they achieve a little, they go back, they achieve a little, they go back, and then it is a little bit of a vicious circle. As opposed to once we're able to align the conscious and the subconscious, then they work together, and then the results not only come, but once this becomes a habit, then it becomes easy, in fact, to create the results that we want. So it is quite a bit of a process, but actually it makes it really, really simple. So this is really, at least to me, it was really appealing, because in psychology, we have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of processes that, first of all, people don't really, they don't want to know about on a day-to-day basis. They want a practical side of psychology.
This is really great
this
point.
This is what, yeah, exactly. And something that can work, and it's a repeatable process, something
So
do over and over again, because no matter how much we grow,
So achieving goals, it doesn't comes from what we think about, but what we really, really believe in at a subconscious level. Because as you said, subconscious mind is in charge of 94 to 98% of our actions, and most of the time, you actually illustrated very well, 1 minus 1 equals 0, because most of the time it's the subconscious mind that will win. So now the question comes, how do people know that they actually believe in their goal in a subconscious level? How I can distinguish that what I am about to do is something that I believe in deeply, not just a thought in my in my conscious mind?
That's an excellent question, and that is the big question, right? Because how do we know what is in our subconscious mind if it is subconscious?
Yes.
And that's always been a tricky question, but the interesting thing is that, what I've learned is actually that our subconscious mind is so powerful that the results always show in our reality. So the way to know what is our subconscious mind is by looking at our results. The results show us exactly what is in there. Our wants are the conscious part, what we would like to happen, but in fact, whatever results show up in our life, that is in exact sync or in exact harmony with our subconscious voice. So that's how we know it's kind of really 100%.
Wow. Your outer world is the result of your inner world. The life you are living today is the result of what you deeply, deeply believe in.
Yes, and what is in our subconscious, we can tell by our results. It is that simple.
Interesting. So let's say, Renata, this was really, really amazing. The way you define the 3 types of goals and how you link this with the subconscious, and how someone can know what they deeply believe in subconsciously. I think our listeners will really, really use this information to move forward with their dreams. Now, getting back to you, if you were to do this over again, remember the day 2006, you have set the intention. What would be the first thing you would do after that?
First of all, that's also an interesting and excellent question. First of all, I would ask myself, I will review my thinking. And if I was to review my thinking with today's awareness, I would most likely catch the limiting part of, one day that could happen. So making a decision is the first step. If we really want it, just make a decision. Once a decision is made, then I can start looking about the how. I can go and ask questions. I can find more information. I can start working towards a goal. I can put it as a CETI goal or for myself, and actually really create a little bit of a definite plan for its achievement. And yes, it would have time, but it wouldn't have taken 12 years as it was in my case, and in many other people's cases when they actually put off the things that we love the most.
Thank you, Renata, for explaining this gap between knowing and doing and achieving goals. In your journey of self-improvement during these years, from psychology to coaching with Bob Proctor Institute, what's the best piece of advice that anyone has ever given you?
There are several things actually, but I would like to point one thing out. We and I'll just say a couple sentences before that so that it will make sense. We believe that according to our belief, different people believe different things. However, in general, we think that we live in a physical body and we have a spirit, while in fact we are spirit and we live in a physical body. And the spirit is perfect. That's, well, of course, a lot of, and not in a religious way, but actually we are spirit. We're connected to the universe. And we already know that it's proven by physics that our thoughts are actually waves and we really project them into space. But coming back to that our spirit is perfect. And in fact, we inside of us are perfect. All we need to do is actually to bring that perfection out to the world. And this is my mission, so to speak, because I'd like to lead and mentor people with heart and soul to show their perfection out to the world. And so far, it is a little bit of a foreign idea that we are perfect, because the biggest lie we're told that we're not perfect. We are perfect. But our expression is very, very imperfect. So that, I would say, is one of the most kind of inspiring thoughts, other than learning about the stick person and how to really simply explain what is happening in our subconscious mind. So these are the two things that I would say. One is understanding the subconscious, and second is understanding our spirit and how to really be able to express what's in our heart to the world, right? Because everybody has that desire.
This is
just that in general, there are only a few people who let themselves who let themselves be and express that to the world.
This is really great, Renata.
So that's
I agree with you.
Nutshell, yeah.
I agree with you. We are spiritual being living this physical experience, and I 100% believe that each one of us has come here with something unique to them, that they just need to connect with it and express it to the world. And that's what I passionately believe in, and that's what I coach people to do, because I went through it myself when I was working in finance, and then I have connected with something really, really different that was more related to who am I on a core level, who am I, what's my true self, what's my mission here in this life. And since that day, I just want to say this: my life is better, my health is better, my feeling is better, and everything connected in a very magical and perfect way. Renata, where people can find you?
Yes, this is so good, and that's why we connected, and I believe we'll have lots more in the future. For people to find me, it is actually really easy. I have a website that is my name, Reneta 360. So RENETA 360.com. And on that website, there are also, I have my social links there.
This is amazing. Reneta360.com, everyone. Go there, schedule your appointment, and start changing your life. Renata, thank you for being in my show again.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the full episode, Warriors. If you like this episode, please share it with your loved one, friends, and family, and connect with me on Instagram at Ayub Yusuf for different type of inspiring content.